Well, hello everyone. This is John Chrisley coming to you to talk to you today about a little more cybersecurity topics. I love talking about cybersecurity. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy sharing some knowledge and ideas. All they are ideas and opinions. They're not necessarily, the gospel or anything like that. But for someone who has a lot of years of experience working in corporate America, both as an internal security officer as well as a vendor on the vendor side. I've got some experiences that I like to share with people, and in the hopes that it'll help somebody. It'll help somebody either with their security program, or it'll help somebody coming up in the security or IT industry become a better CISO or IT director or chief technology officer. And so we're going to talk a little bit more today about a topic that I did this topic some time ago, and I wanted to come back now that I've got this streaming platform powered by StreamYard. Very, very good platform. I highly recommend it. I'm still getting used to it. I'm still learning how to use this platform, but to be able to record and broadcast live right to, in this case, YouTube, or put these videos on LinkedIn is really, it's very helpful, and it gets the word out there quicker than ever before. This particular topic I'm going to talk about today is it takes a breach. Now, if you've heard me talk in maybe a podcast about this, or you've seen a former podcast that I did, you might recognize the topic because I did this topic for the EC Council. I was up for CISO of the Year back a few years ago. And as part of that process of being up for this award of CISO of the Year, the EC Council interviewed all the nominees or the finalists for that, and allowed us to have a topic of our choosing and to do a podcast. Well, mine was entitled It Takes a Breach. And I did a podcast with them and talked about things that really get a company going when it comes to cybersecurity. And sometimes, unfortunately, folks, it takes a breach to really get them to think seriously about what they should do, what they have to do. And if you're interested, if you're watching this webcast, live or recorded, and you want to go back and listen to that podcast that I did, because that's going to be a much longer, it's going to get into a lot more topics. This will be a shorter webcast, I promise. But if you want to go back and listen to that and take a listen, I've had a lot of people listen to that over the years and give me some very good and interesting feedback. And so I'd like to put a link up here on the screen. There you go. It's at the bottom of the screen. And at least I figured out how to do that in this platform. And so there's the link. It's still there. It's still up. And I'm very, very proud of that podcast. You can also search my name. You can type into, Google John Chrisley, It Takes a Breach, and you will find a link to this EC Council Global CISO Forum podcast. And it's called It Takes a Breach. So let me talk a little bit about why I chose that as a topic back then and why I'm still sort of on my soapbox and ranting about it takes a breach. Because sometimes, everybody, that's what it takes for a company to really get serious about their cybersecurity. A lot of us that work in cybersecurity within companies, we could sit there and be waving the flag and beating the drum and talking about risk and putting it into KPIs or risk matrices and trying to do every kind of analysis we possibly can to tell a company how bad certain things could be for a company should they be exploited or breached. And unfortunately, everybody, and I'm not just talking about, by the way, the companies that I've worked for. I'm talking about in my CISO community. I have a lot of CISO friends, everybody. I'm part of a lot of groups, and we do talk. We get together, we talk. We try to learn from each other and get ideas and tactics. And one of the biggest tactics for CISOs nowadays, and has been for many years and probably will be for a lot of years, is how do you get the purse strings to open, the executives to pay attention, the board to even know your name and understand, because we can't get the executives sometimes to move off of base one. And, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a breach. You're going to hear me repeating this a couple times. It takes a breach. It takes an event. It takes an embarrassing event to happen. And that is very unfortunate. Nobody wants that. There's not a CISO that I know that wants that to happen. And most CISOs I know, they know where the holes are. They know the weaknesses. They know the big gaping holes in infrastructure or employee security awareness. They know if you'll just listen to them And who am I talking to when I make that statement in that way? I'm talking to their bosses. I'm talking to the CIOs or the CTOs or the CEOs or the risk manager or the lawyer or the CFO, whoever these CISOs typically report to. I'm talking to you. You have to listen to these CISOs. CISOs, typically have a lot of years of experience in IT. They didn't start as a CISO. They typically started in IT somewhere. They led IT groups. They've managed IT shops for a lot of years. They've managed not only the hardware and the software, but the staff. And they understand how IT runs. They understand how your company runs a lot of times. They understand the kind of business you do, and they understand where the weaknesses are. So if they come to you and they tell you that there's a weakness, that your website has all these gaping holes, and if somebody can break through those holes, they could break into your company and get into things, databases, Active Directory. They're going to throw a lot of systems at you. And if you don't understand what they're saying, just tell them that. Tell them, I don't understand the words coming out of your mouth. You're speaking too geek. Can you maybe draw me a picture? I've had to draw people pictures. It's okay. I've drawn a network map that is not designed like a typical network diagram in Visio that us techies are used to. I've drawn a map and said, this is your house. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's okay. I'm not being condescending. It's okay, people. This is your house or your building. This is the front door. This is the back door. This is the windows. If somebody gets in through here, they could get all the way into here and they could get to your safe that you hid in your bedroom under your, in the closet. And that represents all your data. I mean, put it in terms that the executives will understand. And executives, please try to understand what CISOs are trying to tell you. Most breaches and malware incidents and ransomware incidents that are reported, and probably most of the ones that are not reported, could probably have been prevented. Okay. Is it going to take investment? Yes. Things are not free. You need really, really good endpoint software. You need it to be monitored. Okay. When I say endpoint software, I'm sorry, endpoint security software. It's not just antivirus any longer, right? It has to be fed by threat intel that is on a global scale. Things that go on across the pond or across the globe can affect you if they end up at your front door. So you want your products to be aware of what's going on the global footprint. You want it to be monitored. And I'm not talking about somebody who, does it as kind of a part-time once in a while. All of a sudden they get a flurry of alerts and events and they want to push that under the rug. Okay. That's too much. Their head's going to explode if they, have to deal with all these alerts. I personally believe some of the best alerts are the ones that go to a help desk system that are logged as tickets and have to be resolved. That way, somebody can go back and look at them and say, how many did we get and what were they and how bad were they? As I talk about it takes a breach, I also want to talk about, it's very unfortunate this is still a reality. I have worked for companies in my past that suffered breaches. Was it because I, as their security person, was not raising my hand and trying to, wave the flag and say, look, you have to do these certain things? No, that's not it at all. I was trying. I was doing the best I possibly could. But typically, and in my experience, CISOs don't have their own budget. They're typically under another C-level executive that has their own agenda. And the security money that maybe a CISO needs to go after, maybe that budget, a CIO or a CTO would rather use on a data warehouse or a big database conversion or a modernization project or a desktop revitalization project. That's all great and it's all needed, folks. But if you have a major breach or a ransomware issue, then you're going to realize how much money you should have paid. So you don't have to pay all that money now, right? It's typically cheaper to pay for it now than to have to recover from it later. But unfortunately, everybody, it typically takes a breach. I've been at a couple companies where they did not heed the warnings of their in-house CISO or their risk manager or the auditors that were brought in, the IT auditors who all had CISA and CISSP certifications next to their name. These were some smart men and women that did audits. And that's how I learned. That's how I became a better CISO. As I learned, if I had a blind spot, they would tell me. But and their reports were not like super geeky technical. Yeah, sometimes there were, right? You want to read the results of a vulnerability scan or a pen test, you have to know how to dissect those. But these companies were very, very good at putting this in executive terms. Like, this is what could happen. If somebody got in through this vulnerability we found, they could worm their way in, they could get into this system, they could have access to all this, and that could mean you're going to experience a breach of this magnitude. Guess what happened? They did. It was very unfortunate. And the recovery is horrendous to try to recover from that kind of breach, after the fact. And so there's no need for that. If you listen to your security pros, if you listen to the auditors that you hire or the pen testers, I don't want to say it's going to be easy. None of this is easy. Otherwise, it wouldn't take very, very skilled and educated security folks and network folks to take care of this. No, it's not easy, and it's not cheap usually, but it has to be done. And also, I have to tell you that if you haven't put a lot of time and effort around your security stance and your systems, you're probably going to have a year. Hopefully, it's before a breach where you have to pay quite a bit of money, right? You're going to have to put some investment around this to shore up your defenses. Maybe you do need to replace those firewalls. I'm sorry. Maybe they're end of life. You got to get rid of them, get new ones. Maybe this is your time to get new ones, but get them as part of a managed service with a vendor that can manage them for you and will allow you to pay for that as a monthly service. So it's not so much of a CapEx, it's an OpEx expense. There's an idea for you. But as you do these retrofits of security, which is usually what happens, when people get serious about it, they go back and they look and they say, okay, all right, tell me what I really have to put in place to become current, get up to speed, put in the necessary protections. It can be a little daunting. There can be a lot, new endpoint security software, maybe new patching solution, new firewalls, new security awareness training for your staff, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. That can seem very daunting if you haven't planned for it. I know I was a CIO for a time for a city. And the first time I had to put that budget together, and I looked at it going, wow, nobody's ever presented that before in that way. But I have to tell you this, if you do that, and depending on your company and your size, this could be, 50, 100,000. It could be a couple 100,000. It could be a couple million if you're a big company. Just really depends on what it is. But once you get that investment done, if you put a plan in place to keep up with it, care and feed for these security systems like you probably never have before, then your ongoing expense will not be as much. You have to get your systems up to speed. Unfortunately, people, security is an afterthought for a lot of companies. And I understand it. I tried to relate this recently to somebody, and they said, why is it so hard for people to understand, what security is and why they need it? Because it's sort of like this invisible shield of security, this invisible umbrella around a company. It's tough. It's tough to understand that and understand why is that so important? Why do I have to do that? I haven't been breached yet, so why do I have to worry about this? It can be very tough for people to want to believe that this too could happen to them. And I get it, but it can and it does, and it could happen. So take steps to get in front of it. Listen to your CISOs. Don't let it take a breach to then go back. And you know what happens? People used to say, could you explain a CISO to me? And back, yes, I've had some bitter and jaded times in my career as well. Not for a long time, but I have had them. And I said, a CISO's job is to spend 2-3 years, beating on the door, trying to get the money and the investment and get the products in place. And then their job is to be the scapegoat when there is a breach, that somebody has to be fired, and it's not going to be the CIO, right? Even though the CIO, he or she, was probably told by the CISO for years what kind of investment was needed. Look, everybody, I also don't want to create this gloom and doom like all companies are like this. I've had the fortunate pleasure of working for some companies that took security extremely seriously. They did not want to end up in the news or have to notify hundreds or thousands of customers of a breach they had and offer credit monitoring and worry about their cyber insurance and whether or not it was going to pay. But that's not the norm. Unfortunately, in the industry, there's too many companies that don't view security as a needed thing in their world. Very unfortunate, but If a breach happens, all of a sudden the checkbooks fly open and they just tell you how many zeros do I have to put on the end of this to close this down and make it go away. And all of a sudden you get those firewalls, you get those tools, those utilities, those appliances, you get training for your staff. All of a sudden, it's like you got married and it's honeymoon period for a while because it took a breach. And everybody it should not take a breach. In this day and age, it should not take a breach. If you are doing proper vulnerability scanning and management, proper pen testing, proper risk management and risk mitigation, where you know your risks, you may not be able to fix them all today, right now. Maybe you do have to budget in a future budget for some investment, but make sure those investments get done. Make sure that the budgeting gets done. As we sit here, I'm coming to you in mid 2022 right now, and a big topic of our world and the companies that I've been around recently is around NIST and CMMC compliance for the DoD ecosystem, these DoD subcontractors. And it amazes me that even with what's going on with CMMC as a rule or a requirement, and what's going on, everybody, is it's gone from one version to another version, and they've lessened some of the requirements, but they're still there. It's not showing up yet in contracts, but it will. Right now, maybe some of the prime companies are going back to NIST 800-171 to try to enforce that the best they can. But what's amazing to me, everybody, is what's it going to take? What's it going to take? A breach? Is it going to take a contractor telling a subcontractor you cannot participate and bid on this work or get this work and get this PO because you don't have the necessary security in place? Whatever goes on with CMMC or NIST or any of these rules, they've been talking about this for years. It's not like it's brand new. And so, what's very interesting to me is if people have not yet budgeted anything in 2022, or as they get ready for their 2023 budget, if they don't put anything in their budget for any cybersecurity, you're going to need it. It doesn't matter what the final form of this requirement looks like. You know your environment, don't you? If not, get a company to come in and do an assessment and find out what gaps you have in, what chinks in your armor you may have that need to be fixed at some point because of some requirement or just because so you don't get breached and compromised. And, then you'll be remembering, that security guy, Chrisley, didn't he talk about it takes a breach? You don't want me to be right, folks. You don't. I'm not happy when I'm right about something like that. Unfortunately, I've been right too many times that it has taken a breach for a company to finally wisen up. I have to tell you, while I used to think that it was the CISO that would take the fall for a breach because they had to fire somebody, right? Some head had to roll, and it usually ran downhill. Nowadays, I'm starting to hear a little change in philosophy and thinking and mentality, and I think it's well, worth it. I don't think that companies dare make an example out of, let's say, a CISO anymore because of whistleblower laws and because of other things. If that CISO can come forward and prove, hey, wait a minute, 2 years ago, I knew about this and I pushed this to my boss or to the CEO, to the board. It's probably not a good idea to try to make an example out of that CISO or whoever that is. That's, because there's got to be a scapegoat. Accidents happen. Breaches will happen because of accidents, because of things that nobody knew, because of zero-day exploits that nobody knew anything about. But, don't let them happen for the stuff that you can know about or do know about right here, right now. Get it taken care of, get it fixed, create a budget for it, maybe divert some spending. Maybe you're thinking, this is the time. Maybe we don't do that big data warehouse upgrade. Maybe we don't buy all that new gear. The gear we have maybe can last. Maybe it's out of warranty, and nobody likes to run on out of warranty gear. But maybe you can divert some spending to the security mission just for a little bit. Get yourself up to speed. Now, I'm not talking about huge, if you've got the kind of security CISO, and I have met them too, where they say, oh, I need these Cadillac gold crusted, firewalls, and I need 6 of them. Maybe you don't need all of that, but you may need some security investments to bring yourself up to modern and good enough and managed. Maybe you can use this opportunity to have somebody manage your security with and for you. All right, everybody. I'm going to close here in a minute on this particular webcast. I do not want anybody to be the victim or the subject of a breach. And I believe in proactiveness. Get in front of it. It doesn't always have to happen, and it doesn't have to be as bad as a lot of them are. I'm going to put up here on the screen one more time the link to the podcast that I had done at the EC Council, or for the EC Council with them in their Global CISO Forum podcast. I was very, very proud of being nominated for CISO of the Year. I did not win that year. I was a finalist, and I was of a handful of finalists. The person that won that year was a very close colleague of mine from Optiv, and I was so proud of him and happy that he won. It was just an honor to be nominated for that kind of consideration. But go back, everybody, please take a listen. You can download that podcast as an MP3. You can listen to it as you're driving. It's a podcast. It's audio only, so you don't even have to take your hands off the wheel. If you're driving, you can listen to it. Maybe you'll get some tidbits here and there that make you think, make you get ahead of certain topics. I'm also going to put up here a link real quick to the Cyber Talk Now link there on the GoDaddySites.com. That's my podcast and webcast site. There's other audio and webcast items that I've done there, different speaking engagements that I've been at. So please visit that and drop me a comment. I'm going to also put up here a link to my LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com /in/John Chrisley. Please visit me, connect with me, send me a note. Let me know what you listened to. If you disagreed with something, if you didn't like something, please tell me. I can take criticism. I was in the military. I can be yelled at. Just be respectful, but be honest. And maybe it'll teach me a thing or two, and maybe it'll change something that I'm thinking. If you don't agree with a topic, it's okay. And if you want to reach out to me and send an email, there's my email. It has and will be jchrisley@gmail.com. Reach out, say hello, connect. If you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming webcast, as I learn more about this StreamYard platform that I am utilizing, and kudos to them. What a great platform. They make it easy. I do have to work on my green screen and virtual background so that I remove the halo effect with the lighting, but I'm working on it, everybody. I'm figuring out where things are and how they apply. Now I know where to point to if I'm going to point to an area of the screen. And I'm learning, the platform, but great platform. And I'm able to have guests on StreamYard with me. So by all means, if you'd like to nominate yourself to be on a future webcast and talk about a topic, reach out to me here on Gmail or on LinkedIn. Again, I'll put that back up. Reach out to me, connect with me, tell me that you'd like to do a webcast with me. Or there's other people that you'd like to have on the webcast as well, and what kind of topic you'd like to talk about. And I'll take it under consideration, and maybe we'll make it happen. Again, everybody, thank you very much. My name is John Chrisley, and I enjoy talking about security and hoping that I can help somebody with their security or their IT. And there'll be many more episodes to come. But for the moment, have a great day. Talk to you all real soon. Take care.